There are secrets that were never carved in stone or etched in books. They are hidden in parables, veiled within the simple words of a carpenter from Galilee. Yet they carry the power to stir an entire soul. These are not moral tales. They are maps leading you back to the deepest place within yourself, the place where you have always possessed everything. Each parable in this message is a key, unlocking a door you thought was lost forever. And if you have ever felt as though you were searching for something beyond reason, beyond every technique and method, then your journey begins here. The invitation to enter the kingdom from a metaphysical perspective. The kingdom is not in the skies, nor is it a distant promise awaiting you after the body fades away. It cannot be reached through doctrines, rituals, or years of weary pleading. The kingdom is a state of consciousness, a spiritual frequency that shines beneath all thought, transcending every form, existing before every definition. It is here now, silent yet unwavering, waiting for the moment when you open your eyes and step in, not with your feet, but with the awakening of your mind. Jesus did not leave behind a set of rigid sermons. He left spiritual codes disguised within simple stories, stories that the common man could understand and the learned could not refute. These were parables, but they were never mere tales. Each parable is a map, leading from the world of appearances back to the world of principles. Every symbol, every image carries within it a law already at work in the soul of man. Only light can open doors locked from within. Yet light that is too bright will burn those unprepared. That is why the Master did not press truth directly into closed minds. He planted seeds in the subconscious. He told stories. He spoke of the sower, of treasure hidden in a field, of the pearl of great price, of the prodigal son, of the 10 virgins, of the unfaithful servant. These were not simply to be heard, they were doors, and each person could only open the door from the inside. When a soul is not yet awake, a parable is only an image. When the soul begins to thirst for truth, the parable becomes a whisper. When the soul is ready, the parable turns into a bolt of lightning that shatters every prison of perception. For once you truly hear the voice within the parable, you are no longer a listener. You are one who enters from the metaphysical view. The parables are never about someone else, they're about you. The soil is your mind. The sower is the thought you choose. The weeds are habits, fears, and buried desires. The waiting Father is not a far-off God, but the Christ within you, patiently watching for the day you return. The issue is not in understanding a story, it is in living the truth within it. This is what Emmet Fox emphasized. He did not repreach the Bible as a scholar might. He brushed away the dust of religion that had covered the parables for centuries so that their original light could reach the hearts of those who hunger for truth. Through the metaphysical lens, every parable is a command that activates a deeper level of consciousness. No word is accidental. No image is random. Everything operates under a sacred order, like a spiritual code designed to unlock the kingdom within you. You are not invited to the king's banquet by virtue of piety, nor do you enter through outward effort. You enter only by changing the way you think. When your mind harmonizes with the frequency of the kingdom, the door opens on its own, no bell, no announcement, only the quiet rushing in like light. If you have ever felt that something was amiss in the busyness of life, if you have stood in the midst of success and still felt empty, if you have sought God and not found him, then you are already close to the threshold. For only the soul that begins to doubt the false reality can touch the real one. The parable is where your soul is reflected, not through logic, but through a primal memory. For you do not learn the truth, you remember it, and the parable is the means by which that sacred memory is awakened. Do not read as one who is merely studying. Listen as one who is returning home. Each section you are about to encounter is not simply a chapter in a book, it is a mirror. And your gaze is the key. You need not memorize. You need not analyze. Only be honest. The kingdom is nowhere else. It is in the first thought you choose to believe upon waking, in the first feeling you nurture when facing trouble, in the way you look at yourself when no one else is there. If you are still reading these words, you are not studying the Bible. You are knocking on the door of your own being. And the good news is that door is not locked. The question is not whether you may enter, but whether you can become still enough to hear the wordless invitation echoing from within. The kingdom does not wait for you to change everything. It waits for you to change one thing, the way you think. And that is where everything begins. The parable of the sower, the law of the subconscious. What are you sowing into your mind each day? A question that may seem simple, yet it carries the weight of your entire destiny. For no one lives without sowing, and no one reaps anything other than what they have quietly planted in the soil of their own being. Jesus was not speaking about faraway fields in some countryside. He was speaking about you. The parable of the sower may appear to be nothing more than an ancient agricultural scene, but in the light of metaphysics, it is a panoramic portrait of the inner world. A sower goes out to sow. Some seeds fall by the wayside, and the birds devour them. Some fall on rocky ground. They spring up quickly, but wither away because they have no roots. Some fall among thorns, and the thorns choke them. And some fall into good soil, bringing forth an abundant harvest. These seeds are your thoughts, your ideas, the words you speak to yourself in your quietest moments. And the soil is not somewhere out there, it is your own subconscious mind. It is there that everything is planted, nurtured, and eventually brought forth into the visible world as an undeniable part of your life. No one else is sowing into your subconscious each day. Not your parents, not society, not fate. You are the sower. You are the one who chooses to hold on to a thought or cast it away. You are the one who decides whether fear will stay or whether faith will be invited in. Everything that happens in your life is the inevitable result of this silent planting. Have you ever wondered why you constantly feel lack, anxiety, or as though you are trapped in an invisible loop? Have you noticed yourself speaking positive words, only to return to your old fears? If so, then you are seeing yourself reflected in this very parable. When the seed falls by the wayside, it is a symbol of a scattered mind, one that hears a good idea but does not receive it, does not ponder it, does not let it take root. Good words and noble ideas touch only the surface, then vanish, swallowed by old habits, old prejudices, or the distractions of life, like birds carrying them away. When the seed falls on rocky ground, it speaks of a shallow mind easily moved, but lacking depth. One hears a truth, feels inspired, yet refuses to remove the hidden stones of fear, judgment, and resistance lodge deep within the subconscious. When life's challenges come, the seed cannot stand, for it has no roots. When the seed falls among thorns, it shows what happens when a right idea is strangled by life's worries, by attachment to material things, by fear of losing face, or by addiction to familiar dramas. In such soil, the seed may sprout, but it will not grow strong. Its life is drained by other roots that have been entrenched for years. And finally, only when the soil has been cleared, turned over, softened, and nourished, can the seed truly live. In such a mind, even a single thought can transform an entire life. No seed is ever weak. No truth ever loses its power. Truth is eternal. The problem has never been with the seed, it has always been with the soil. The law of the subconscious favors no one and opposes no one. It is simply a neutral instrument, whatever you sow. It keeps whatever you water. it nurtures. Whatever you repeat, it accepts as truth. So what kind of soil is your mind today among the four types? Are you allowing the birds of worry, doubt, and other people's opinions to snatch away seeds before they take root? Or are you planting your ideas in unprepared ground among the tangled roots of resentment, envy, and regret? And if you realize that your soil has been barren, that you have neglected your seeds, or that you have sown negativity without knowing there is no need for despair, you can begin again at any moment. You can choose anew the thoughts you hold, the feelings you repeat, the words you speak, and from there sow fresh seeds with awareness, with love, with gratitude, and with purposeful stillness. When you meditate, when you pray in the right way, when you pause to notice the thoughts you are repeating, you are tending the soil. You are making your subconscious ready to receive light. And when the soil is good, even the smallest seed can grow into the tree of life. You do not need a new field. You need to renew the one within. You do not need a special seed. You only need to love the smallest seed with all your faith. So I ask you, when was the last time you sat still and observed the soil of your mind? When you faced failure, what did you plant into your subconscious? When you received praise, what did you allow to take deeper root? When you were alone, what words did you repeat in your heart? If you are ready to be honest with yourself, if you have the courage to look at the old seeds and choose to plant anew, then you have already stepped into a new beginning. Thank you for listening this far. Thank you for not only hearing, but opening your heart to receive. This means you are tending once again to the garden within, and that is the first step, the most important step. For from that place, you will reap what you truly deserve, not by luck, but because you have learned once more how to sow the wheat and the tares, the parallel path in transformation. Tares do not grow in barren land. They appear only in wheat fields. This reveals a profound truth about spiritual life. Even when you have begun to sow the right seeds, even when you have courageously chosen light over darkness, there will still be false thoughts creeping in, disguised and hidden among the good you are nurturing. The danger is that in their early stages, they resemble each other so closely that you can hardly tell them apart. Jesus told of a man who sowed good seed in his field, but while men slept, an enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went away. When the plants grew and produced fruit, the tares became visible. The servants wanted to pull them up immediately, but the master refused, knowing that to pull them up now would harm the wheat as well. They must both remain until the harvest. In the light of metaphysics, this is not a story about someone else. It perfectly describes the process of inner transformation. When you begin to live from truth, when you choose to sow love, gratitude, and mindfulness, the unhealed parts within you will also rise to the surface. Not because you have done something wrong, but because light has begun to shine upon the darkness that was already there. The tares represent limiting beliefs, unconscious patterns, negative thoughts planted in you from years past, perhaps from childhood, family, society, or even from lifetimes your soul cannot recall. They have been there all along, unseen. And when you sow light, they begin to show themselves. The greatest challenge for one who is awakening is not facing the darkness outside, but learning how to live with the simultaneous presence of light and darkness within without being pulled into extremes. The urge to rip out all the tares at once, to destroy every flaw in yourself, is a common but dangerous reaction. It creates an inner war, and when your mind wages war against itself, both the good and the harmful are damaged. The master in the parable did not say the tares were good. He only said Do not pull them up now. Let them grow together. Let time and light do the work of separation. For when the wheat is mature, when you have grown enough spiritually, you will naturally know what is real and what is merely an old reflex. At that point, there will be no need to fight. You will simply release what no longer resonates. Spiritual law never urges haste. It teaches conscious patience. Light does not come to destroy darkness, it comes to reveal everything. And when you truly see, you are no longer a victim of what once operated in your blind spots. In the healing process, many mistake the presence of negativity, anger, or doubt as a sign of failure. In truth, the very awareness of these states is proof of progress. Before, you lived unconsciously. Now, you can see, and the ability to see is the evidence that light has begun to enter your inner life. No one walks the spiritual path without encountering tares. Anyone who sows light will see darkness. What you need is not perfection, but the courage to live with imperfection without losing your direction. The tares will not remain forever, but they cannot be torn out by force. They fade only through your own growth. Each time you choose a right thought, each time you choose forgiveness over resentment, gratitude over complaint, presence over distraction, you are nurturing the wheat. And when the wheat is strong, the tares will have no place to root. Transformation does not happen in one blazing moment. It unfolds through thousands of small choices in seemingly ordinary moments. You do not need to pull up the tares, you only need to care for the wheat. And when harvest time comes, you will see clearly what is worth keeping. The spiritual journey is not the path of becoming flawless. It is the path of one who sees clearly that they carry both light and darkness, yet chooses to walk in the light, not out of force, not out of fear, but because they have begun to love themselves enough not to keep sowing darkness. And so, even though the tares remain, you are no longer afraid of them, for you know you are not them. You are the keeper of the field, and the keeper of the field is not deceived by appearances. He trusts the harvest. He knows that when the time is right, what needs to remain will remain, and what needs to fall away will wither on its own, not through battle, but through light, not through strain, but through steadfast trust in the law of the mind, the treasure hidden in the field, the sacred potential within. There was a man who, while digging in what seemed like a worthless field, suddenly discovered a treasure buried deep in the earth. He did not make a scene, did not boast, did not rush to show it off. Quietly, he covered it again, then went and sold all he had in order to buy that field, not out of greed, but because he had seen its true worth. No one told him, no one showed him where to look. The treasure had been there all along, but only one who paid close attention and dug deeply could ever see it. This parable is not about a lucky farmer. It is the portrait of a soul on the journey back to its divine essence. The field is nothing other than your own mind. The surface, dry and seemingly meaningless, represents the ordinary level of consciousness where people live by habit, by reflex, by inherited beliefs, and by what has been passed down from others. But beneath that surface lies a treasure few are willing to dig for. That treasure is not knowledge, not experience, not status or achievement. It is the sacred potential placed within you from the beginning, the original light, the indwelling Christ, the pure essence of who you truly are, untouched by the world. No one can create it for you. No one can hand it to you. It can only be found from within. What is striking is that the treasure is not on some mountaintop or in some far-off realm. It rests in the most ordinary field, the very place most people overlook. This reveals an important law. The holiest things are always hidden in the simplest forms, and only those with enough discernment, patience, and humility can recognize them. The man in the parable did not take the treasure away. He did not steal it. He did not claim temporary possession. He returned, sold all he had, and bought the field lawfully. This shows that to truly possess the treasure of the soul, you cannot just visit it. You must give yourself to it entirely. You must exchange what no longer serves you, not with money, but with the surrender of what no longer fits. You must be willing to release your old definitions of yourself, to let go of the roles you have clung to stop identifying with pain, with false success, with limiting beliefs you once mistook for truth. For if you insist on keeping everything, you cannot truly enter the depths of your being. In the light of metaphysics, the treasure cannot be lost, it can only be concealed. And if you have ever felt something missing inside, if you have sensed a quiet knowing that you were born for something deeper, that is not illusion. It is the call of the treasure within you. The problem is not that you lack light, but that you have not dug deep enough. The problem is not that you are unworthy, but that you have been digging in someone else's field. You may have been searching in knowledge, in logic, in recognition from the outside, but the treasure will not appear there. It appears when you turn inward, when you pause, when you begin to watch your thoughts without judgment, when you stop condemning yourself, stop chasing something in the future, and accept that all you need has been within you all along. This treasure will not make you stand above others. It will make you whole. It will not make you win. It will make you rest. It will not help you outshine anyone. It will return you to yourself. In truth and in peace. Not everyone finds the treasure, not because it is hard to find, but because people do not trust enough to dig. They lack the patience to remain in stillness. They lack the courage to leave the familiar. But once you find it, you will understand why the man in the parable was willing to sell everything. It was not loss. It was the discovery of the only thing worth keeping. And the miracle is that when you find the treasure in yourself, you begin to see the treasure in others. You stop judging by appearances. You stop envying or condemning, because you know that every soul carries a treasure. Some have found it. Some are still digging, and some are wandering in the wrong field, but all have the same chance. No one is excluded. No one is forgotten. For the kingdom of God is not reserved for the perfect. It is for those willing to turn inward and begin to dig, not by force, but by faith, not through dogma, but through love. The treasure is waiting for you, not far away, not needing anything more, only that you be still enough to look and humble enough to recognize that it has always been there, right beneath your feet. The pearl of great price, recognizing your true self. There was once a merchant who devoted his life to seeking fine pearls. After many years of searching, he came upon a pearl unlike anything he had ever seen. In that instant, he knew it was what he had been seeking all along. Without hesitation, he went back, sold all he owned, and exchanged it for that one thing, the pearl. No one else understood his decision, but he did not need their understanding. To him, it was not a loss. It was a return. In the light of metaphysics, the pearl is not merely a symbol of value. It is the emblem of the true self. The ego travels a long road, chasing everything outside itself, only to reach exhaustion and realize that the most precious thing was never out of reach. The pearl is your divine essence. It is not born of roles, status, achievements, or form. It is not defined by what you possess, but is recognized in the perfect stillness of consciousness. The merchant in the parable is the image of the soul at the end of its search, after traveling every worldly path, after reaching every outer summit, and still feeling an unnameable lack. The soul finally turns inward and sees what it has always had but never known how to recognize. The pearl needs no crafting. It has been perfect from the beginning. But to recognize it, one must be willing to give up the other glittering stones, those things once thought important. admired by society, or falsely offering safety. In truth, very few dare to sell all, for one thing. Most doubt the pearl is real. Others believe but cannot release the familiar. The ego always wants to keep a little control, a little guarantee, a little safety. But light will not come while you are still clutching the dark. The true self cannot appear while you continue to define yourself by what is outside. The pearl is you, but not the you of names and labels, not the you of the past, not the you of expectations, not the you of fear. The pearl is the pure part of you that has never been harmed, never been stained, never been forgotten by the Creator. It has been there all along, waiting for the day you are brave enough to release all that you are not, so you may return to what you are. The merchant's selling of all he had is not about material possessions, it is about identification. As long as you cling to the definitions of who you think you are, you cannot see your true being. As long as you think you are your past, your failures, your successes, your victimhood, your victories, your lineage, or the product of society, the pearl will remain hidden. This letting go is not a violent act. It is a choice from within. It is the decision that you will no longer allow anything temporary to define what is eternal. You will no longer let the voice in your head tell you who you are. You will sit still, quietly, watching each layer of the false self fall away, until only a pure presence remains nameless, beyond explanation. Yet, the only thing that is real, no one can hand you this pearl. They can speak of it, hint at it, share their experience of it. But to see it, you must look with the eyes within. And once you see it, you cannot help but act like the merchant. Once you recognize true worth, everything else naturally loses, meaning no more regret, no more inner battle, no more fear of loss. For what you have now does not come from the outside. It rises from the depths within a freedom no one can take, a wealth beyond measure, a peace without condition. The pearl does not make you become someone. It frees you from needing to become anyone. You no longer have to prove, protect, or impress. Your very presence is enough, sustained not by knowledge or experience, but by the original light of the Creator still alive within you. And this is what every soul longs for, not an easy life, not a dazzling future, but an unconditional peace, a homecoming, a moment of realization, I am enough. I have always been enough. The pearl of great price is not in the future. It does not need to be further sought. It is here, now. The moment you dare to release all that is not you, the pearl will reveal itself. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away. For it is you from the beginning and forever. The prodigal son, the journey of leaving and returning. The son asked his father for his share of the inheritance, then left home, taking with him all that was rightfully his to enter a world he believed would give him freedom, happiness, and control over his life. He went far away, living to the fullest, spending everything, losing himself in pleasures that seemed to satisfy but left his soul emptier with each passing day. When all was gone, when hunger became his constant companion, when he found himself competing with pigs for food and no one cared, a strange thing happened. He remembered home, not as a thought, but as something deeper, like a quiet whisper rising in his mind, a call without sound that silenced everything else. This is the power of the voice within, not merely a voice you hear, but a space you return to. It was in that very moment, when he had nothing left to boast of, no role to uphold, no strength to fight, that a sacred space within him opened. No reason was needed, no explanation required, only a touch of what was truly real. And in that homecoming, he no longer demanded to be a son. He only wished to be a servant. But the Father had never ceased to be his Father. No matter who the Son thought he was, no matter how far he had gone, no matter how deeply he had wandered into error, the nature of love had not changed. In the light of metaphysics, the parable of the prodigal son is not about sin and punishment, it is about human free will, about the false belief that we can separate ourselves from our source and create happiness from the outside without inner connection. Yet when illusions collapse, when false values no longer hold, the call of the soul rises again. Not loud, not condemning, only an invitation. Come home. It is worth noting that the Father did not stop his Son from leaving. He allowed him to choose. For true love does not control. It trusts, it waits, and it is always ready to open the door when the child returns. Not in a state of perfection, but in a state of honesty. The Father did not wait for explanations, apologies, or an account of the past. He saw only that his Son was coming home, and that was enough. The journey of leaving and returning is the symbol of the spiritual process. Every soul, in one way or another, has left its true self, not by footsteps, but by thought. We leave when we begin to believe that our worth lies in how much we earn, how much we are liked, how much better we are than others, or what we own. We leave when we place our security in the hands of the outer world and forget the voice within. But no one can wander forever without growing weary. No one can live in separation without eventually longing to return. And when you are ready to look back, not with self-condemnation, but with deep honesty, every door will open, not through effort, but through awareness. The Son did not return in triumph. He returned in humility. But that humility was the mark of spiritual maturity. And the mystery is this: while he was still far off, the Father saw him. This means love always goes before you. The moment you even think of returning, something within you receives that signal and begins to move toward you. The robe, the ring, the sandals, and the feast were not rewards. They were symbols of the restoration of your divine nature. The robe for covering, the ring for connection, the sandals for a new journey, and the feast for the re-establishment of the sacred bond between you and your source. This parable is not about the past. It is about the present. It does not ask what you have done. It asks if you are ready to return. And such a return does not require a complicated path. It begins with a decision, a pause, a whisper in the mind that you are quiet enough to hear. If you have ever felt lost, if you have ever thought it was too late to come back, if you have ever felt unworthy of the universe's love, this story is for you. There is no distance too far, no mistake too great, no failure that can block the light. For true love is unconditional. The Father is still waiting, not somewhere far away, but within you, in every breath, in every choice, in every moment. You turn back to what is real, and once you return, you will no longer be the one who left. You will be new, not because you were forgiven, but because you have realized you were never truly separated. This is a power that does not come from outside. It is the voice within, gentle yet unshakable. This is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, and that space is always there, waiting for you to open your heart, waiting for you to knock, waiting for you to remember that you were never lost. You need only to come home, and the light will do the rest. The Good Samaritan, love is the living expression of right thinking. A man was attacked by robbers, beaten, stripped, and left half dead by the roadside. A priest came by, saw him, but crossed over to the other side. A Levite also passed, saw him, and kept walking. Then a Samaritan, one despised by society at the time, stopped. He saw, he felt compassion. He drew near, cared for the man, bound up his wounds, placed him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, paid the innkeeper, and promised that if more was needed, he would repay it on his return. In the light of metaphysics, this is more than a story of kindness. It is a vivid illustration of the difference between knowledge and reality, between religious form and spiritual essence, between outer knowing and inner connection. The priest knew the scriptures, the Levite understood the law, but only the Samaritan acted from a deeper place, one unbound by position, prejudice, or religious duty. He did not act out of obligation. He acted because love had been formed within him, and that love required no title, no recognition, no perfect timing. It simply needed to live. Love, in its metaphysical depth, is not a fleeting emotion. It is the result of right thinking, cultivated over time until it becomes your nature. The Samaritan did not have to decide what to do. He simply did what he was. At the soul's deepest level, there are no real boundaries between people, not nationality, not religion, not education. There is only the truth that every soul comes from the same source and is connected by the same essence. When you live from that awareness, you no longer see others as a name, a role, or a label. You see them as yourself. The wounded man in the story could be anyone, a stranger, someone who once hurt you, or even the fragile part of yourself. And the Samaritan is not someone else, it is you. When you choose to respond from love instead of fear, when you choose to stop instead of passing by, when you choose closeness over distance, true help does not come from duty or morality. It comes from the awareness that no one can truly be whole while another is still in pain. It springs from a deep connection to all life, and that connection awakens only when you stop. The priest and the Levite did nothing wrong in the legal sense. Yet at the deepest level, they failed to live from their divine essence. They upheld their religious role but bypassed the soul in front of them. This is a sobering reminder to anyone who believes that knowing the right answer is enough. Knowledge cannot replace presence. Law cannot replace compassion. You may know every correct principle, but if your heart is closed, the light has not yet truly dawned. The Samaritan did more than heal a man's body. He restored faith in the living bond between souls. He became the living expression of a right idea matured into action. In the spiritual journey, every prayer, every lesson, every right thought must eventually lead to one place. Love, not a fragile, sentimental love, but the love that springs from a clear recognition that you and the other are one. This love chooses no recipient. It does not distinguish between friend or stranger, right or wrong, worthy or unworthy. It only knows to serve. The healing of the world will not come from complex systems. It will come from small, genuine acts, from the moments you choose to open your heart instead of closing it, to slow down so you can truly see, to touch another's pain without rushing to judge. That is when you live as the Samaritan, not needing to be named, not needing to be honored, simply being yourself in your purest form. And when such love is expressed, even once, it becomes a light that spreads endlessly through the collective mind. This parable does not demand that you become someone new. It asks you to remember what you have always been, one who can love, one who can choose to act from compassion, one who has the opportunity every day to embody the divine. You need not wait for the world to change. You need not wait for the perfect moment. You only need to stop, to see, and to act. Love does not need conditions to begin. It only needs you not to block it. For when you let it flow through you, it will lead you back to the place where all healing begins, the place where you see others as yourself, where you no longer separate giving from receiving, and where every act becomes a living prayer for a world restored from within. The unjust steward, responsibility in managing your thoughts. There was a steward accused of wasting his master's goods. The master called him in and told him he could no longer hold his position. Facing the loss of everything, the steward considered how he might save himself. He did not run away. He did not plead for his post. Instead, and he quietly went to those who owed his master and reduced their debts, securing their goodwill for the future. When the master learned of this, he did not respond with the anger one might expect. He commended the steward for his shrewdness. In the light of metaphysics, this story is not an endorsement of dishonesty, nor a lesson in manipulation. It is a metaphor for how the soul must learn to manage its own thoughts with responsibility, flexibility, and conscious awareness. Every person is a steward. We do not own this life. We are entrusted with a measure of time, a capacity to think, and a mind with the freedom to choose. We are given the responsibility to use these in ways that bring forth good not only for ourselves but for the world. The steward in the parable owned nothing. He was simply entrusted with its care. The subconscious works in much the same way. It is a mechanism not owned by you, yet it reflects exactly how you use it. Every thought you allow to remain in your mind is an instruction you give to the subconscious. If you allow it to dwell on false ideas, limiting beliefs, or negative reactions, you are wasting the master's goods, distorting the creative flow from the source. When the steward was caught wasting the master's goods, he could not continue as before. That was his moment of awakening. Likewise, when you begin to see that the results in your life reflect an inner state of disorder and neglect, you are being invited to stop, observe, and change. Change does not require a crisis, but often it is the collapse of outer structures that opens the way for inner clarity. When what you once believed no longer holds true, when old patterns no longer work, it is time to relearn how to use the mind with wisdom. The steward made a bold move. He chose to adjust the accounts. He knew his time was short. Rather than complain, he acted not out of self-interest alone, but to restore a new kind of relationship, grounded in mercy and discernment. Every negative thought you have ever entertained, every time you agreed with the inner voice of criticism, is a debt you have created in consciousness. But you have the right to rewrite that account, not through deception, but through redefinition, by changing the way you see, by courageously acknowledging your mistakes without condemning yourself, and beginning again with deeper awareness. The master was not angry because the steward had made a mistake. He was angry because the steward had not acted rightly until he was forced to. Yet when the steward acted wisely, he was praised. This shows that the source does not condemn you for past errors. It only waits for you to awaken and use what you have in ways that serve life. Your thoughts are your greatest wealth. How you manage them will determine the entire experience of your life. You do not need to be perfect, but you must be honest. No one demands that you think positively every moment, but you can learn to watch what you are thinking and choose again at any time. A wise steward does not spend recklessly. They know exactly what they are holding. In the same way, an awakened soul does not let thoughts drift aimlessly. They live in awareness, giving attention to what brings light, healing, and inspiration. This parable does not ask you to become a saint. It invites you to become a true steward, one who does not deceive themselves, one who does not allow their thinking to be dictated by circumstances, one who can rebuild the inner life entirely through present choice. If you have wasted time on what does not matter, repeated beliefs that weaken you, blamed others, or avoided responsibility, then you now stand at your greatest opportunity, the chance to begin managing again. You do not need to wait for tomorrow. You do not need to wait for conditions to be perfect. You need only begin with the next thought you choose to hold. For in the inner world, you are not the master, but you are the one entrusted with the greatest responsibility. And when you learn to govern your mind with integrity, patience, and wisdom, the entire store of divine riches within you will begin to yield, increase, not for you alone, but for all you touch. The vineyard workers, spiritual justice measured by vibration, not labor. A vineyard owner went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. He agreed on a wage with them and sent them to work. Later in the day, at various hours, even as late as the 11th hour, he continued to invite more workers. When evening came, he called them all in and paid each the same amount. Regardless of whether they had worked from dawn or had just started near the day's end, those who had labored since morning grumbled, believing they deserved more. But the owner replied that he had done them no wrong. He had honored the agreement, and he had the right to do as he wished with what was his, to the eyes of worldly justice. This is one of the most controversial parables, but in the light of metaphysics, it offers a profound teaching on the true nature of spiritual justice, a justice that is measured not by time or effort, but by vibration. The physical world operates on the concept of time: work more, earn more, serve longer, hold greater claim. But the divine realm does not function that way. There, all reward flows from the state of consciousness, from alignment with the frequency of love, light, and truth. Those who worked from morning were not wrong in their labor, but their error was in believing that the reward was earned solely by outward effort rather than inner transformation. Seeing those who came later receive the same, they fell into comparison, imagining they were deprived, yet it was this very attitude that pulled them away from fullness. The deeper question the parable asks is this: do you work for the wage, or do you work from the rightness within? If the reward is your only aim, then your presence in the field is merely a means to an end. But if that presence flows from love and a spirit of service, you have been paid in full in every moment. You live in alignment with what is right. On the metaphysical level, every soul is invited into God's vineyard, not to labor in a material sense, but to contribute to the healing and awakening of humanity. Some accept early, some wander through long seasons of error before saying yes. But the miracle is this: the moment you enter, the moment you choose the light, the reward is whole. For God does not calculate, light does not measure, love does not divide by the clock. The instant you truly return to your divine essence, you step fully into the flow of grace, regardless of where you have been, how long it took, or how many mistakes lay behind you. Those who came early in the day represent those who have lived uprightly, who have practiced and persevered from the start. They agreed to their wage, but those who came later, souls once lost, people just now awakened, were also invited in, and when they entered with a pure heart, sincere repentance, and a vibration resonant with the light, they were joined into the same stream. This is not injustice. It is the highest form of fairness, where no one is excluded, where every soul has equal opportunity, and where reward depends not on outer record, but on inner resonance. The parable is not about wages, it is about the divine reward: peace, homecoming, awakening. And such things cannot be divided. They cannot be given in halves. You cannot have part of a return. You either have it all or not yet. Those who came early are invited to reflect on why they are in the field at all. They can remain with the Master in gratitude and trust, or be trapped in jealousy and calculation. And it is jealousy, not the wage, that robs the true reward. The lesson here is that what matters is not the length of the journey, but the manner of your steps, not how many years you have practiced, but your presence now, not whether you came first or last, But whether you are truly in harmony with the divine love calling you, the vineyard owner is not partial. He is not unjust. He simply lives by a higher law, the law of consciousness, and when you understand that, you no longer compare. You rejoice when another is healed, when another steps into the light, even if they arrived moments ago, for you know their light does not diminish yours. When a soul returns, all of heaven rejoices, and you, if you truly understand love's nature, will rejoice too. This is eternal justice, where every soul is recognized, not for how much they have done, but for what they have become. And only when you release demands and comparisons will you truly receive the fullness of your own reward, never lacking, never late, never wrong. All that is right arrives at the right time, and every soul, the moment it returns, is welcomed as if it had never been away. The vineyard is always open, and the light is always enough for all, the 10 virgins, perseverance and vigilance in the spiritual life. 10 virgins took their lamps to go out and meet the bridegroom. 5 were wise and brought extra oil. 5 were foolish and brought lamps, but no oil. When the bridegroom delayed, they all grew weary and fell asleep. At midnight, a cry rang out announcing his arrival. They all rose and trimmed their lamps, but the foolish realized their lamps were going out and had no oil left. They asked the others to share, but were refused, for such oil could not be given away. They went to buy more, and while they were gone, the bridegroom came. Those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. When the others returned and knocked, it was too late. This parable is not meant to frighten or threaten. It is a profound awakening, a mirror, reflecting the truth of watchfulness and responsibility in the spiritual life. For light cannot be kept alive by knowledge alone. It is sustained only through continuous presence. The 10 virgins represent souls invited into sacred communion with the source of light. All were given lamps. All had the same opportunity, but only half understood that light cannot endure without prior preparation. The oil is the symbol of inner work, of steadfast practice, of love, nourished daily. No one can pour oil into another's lamp. Every soul must tend its own flame. You cannot borrow light. You cannot live off the readiness of another. The difference lay not in outward action. All held lamps, all waited, all slept, but only those with oil could continue when the moment came. The bridegroom's delay is the metaphor for the unpredictability of the divine process. No one knows when the moment of true transformation will arrive. No one knows when the light will break into consciousness. But when it comes, only those already prepared within will enter. The outer world is always busy, always drawing attention away from the soul's center. You can easily be pulled into roles, tasks, and short-term goals. Without the steady tending of the inner life, your flame will quietly fade. Not because you did something wrong, but because you forgot to feed it. Feeding the flame is quiet, unseen, unpraised work. It is choosing meditation over distraction, choosing forgiveness over resentment, choosing persistence when results have not yet come. This is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. It is in that space that you add oil to your lamp. It is in those moments that you are becoming ready, and you will never know when the call will sound, but when it does, you will rise without panic and step forward without hesitation. The refusal to share oil in the parable is not selfishness, it is truth. Inner light cannot be transferred through words or borrowed through deeds. It is built from living experience, from continuous connection to the divine. When the door closed, it was not because the host was cruel, but because the moment had come and those unprepared had stepped away from their own opportunity. There was no punishment, only the natural consequence of what had been sown, this parable reminds you, spiritual life cannot be lived superficially. You cannot wait for crisis before you connect with the Creator. You cannot wait for suffering to begin seeking the light. If you truly long to enter the wedding feast, that union of the soul with God, you must prepare in every act, every choice, every thought, not out of fear of being left behind, but because true love does not wait. It arrives when consciousness is ripe. And when you are ripe, you will no longer seek the light, you will have become it. Not through promises, but through presence, not by imitating another, but by living true to the call within you. Light is the reward of silent perseverance. Oil is the fruit of every moment. You choose to turn inward instead of outward. When you maintain that vigilance, you need never fear the dark, for the light within you will lead the way. The parable of the 10 virgins is an invitation to live true, live, deep, live awake, not to wait until the last moment, not to depend on another's readiness, but to live from the source. Each day, a little oil, ach Moment, a little light, and then, in the hour no one foresees, you will be ready. No rush, no worry, only keep your lamp burning, for the bridegroom will come, and when the fire still burns in your heart, you will be led into the feast where there is no distance between you and the source, where you search no more, for you have become the very thing you sought, the rich fool, the illusion of material wealth, the truth of the Spirit. A wealthy man had an abundant harvest, so abundant that his barns could no longer hold it. He thought to himself and decided to tear down his old barns and build bigger ones. Then he said in his heart, "Soul, you have plenty stored up for many years. Take your ease. Eat, drink, and be merry." Asterisk. But that night, a voice came from the depths. "You fool, this very night your soul will be required of you. Then, whose will these things be which you have stored up?" Asterisk. This parable is more than a warning against clinging to material wealth. It is a precise unveiling of one of humanity's most common illusions, that external possessions can substitute for inner security. The rich man was not evil. He was simply a soul, lost in the belief that safety, happiness, and self-worth could be secured by the size of one's holdings. The error was not in abundance itself, but in confusing the means with the end. He had gathered, calculated, and planned for the future, but he never asked the deeper question, who am I in the midst of all this? Asterisk. He built barns, but not consciousness. He stored grain, but starved the soul. And that is the true tragedy. When you attach your existence to what can be measured, counted, and stored, you are building your house on sand. Material things are a current, not a foundation. They can come and go, rise and fall. The divine within you is not like that. It needs no storage, it only needs to be lived. The words, "You fool," are not condemnation, but awakening a bell of truth ringing when a soul has wandered too far into illusion. For you cannot guard your soul with stone walls and iron doors. You can only keep it safe by living in truth. The man's real error was thinking he owned time, that he could delay the soul's life until the outer conditions were secured, that he could tell his soul to rest only once the ledger was full. But the soul does not live by human contracts, it lives by awareness. And when neglected too long, it will reclaim its rightful place. That night, the call came, not as punishment, but as the close of a chapter. When the soul leaves the body, what remains is not barns, deeds, or bank accounts, but how much you have loved, forgiven, been present, and lived truly. This parable invites you to examine, are you building barns for the body while leaving the soul unfed? Are you chasing numbers while missing something deeper? Are you spending your life preparing to live instead of actually living? Wealth is not wrong, but it is a means, not a refuge. It is a tool to serve the soul, not a prison to contain it. You can have much, but if you live in fear of loss and constant comparison, in the hunger for what's next, you are poor in ways money cannot cure. The man thought he could say to his soul, rest, eat, drink, be merry, asterisk. But the soul does not feed on bread. It feeds on connection. It is nourished by truth. It lives by light. When you starve the soul long enough, you will feel empty even when the outside is full. You will be weary without cause. You will feel lost in the midst of success. For what you truly need is not more but to return. Return to the divine essence, to the inner voice you once heard as a child, once felt in stillness, once touched in moments of clarity. This is what Emmet Fox would have you know. There is no true safety outside yourself. There is no lasting wealth that does not flow from within. There is no achievement worth having if it does not serve the soul's expansion. The rich man is an image of something in all of us, the part that wants to control, to store, to fear lack. But there is another part, deeper and purer, reminding you there is a treasure that can never be lost, and you have carried it from the day you were born. This parable does not call you to abandon material things. It calls you to reorder your priorities. Let the soul lead. Let inner truth be the foundation. And when you live from that place, everything outside becomes a tool for service. You need not tear down barns to build bigger ones. You need only clear the inner space so the light has room to shine. Then you will see that the greatest treasure was never outside you. It is you when you live in harmony with your true essence. The unforgiving servant, forgiveness is the key to mental freedom. A king wished to settle accounts with his servants. One owed him an immense sum, so large it could never be repaid. Brought before the king, the servant fell to his knees, pleading for patience and promising to pay it all back. Moved with compassion, the king forgave the entire debt, asking for nothing in return. Yet no sooner had the servant left the palace than he met a fellow servant who owed him a small amount by comparison. Instead of showing mercy, he seized him by the throat, demanding immediate payment. The fellow servant also fell to his knees, pleading for time, but was refused. The unforgiving servant had him thrown into prison. When the king heard of this, he summoned the man and said, I forgave you all your debt. Should you not also have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you? Asterisk. And he handed him over to the jailers until he could pay it all back. In the light of metaphysics, this parable is not merely a moral lesson. It reveals forgiveness as a fundamental law of consciousness, a practical mechanism for spiritual release, and a mirror reflecting the truth of your inner state. Have you ever held someone in your heart who wronged you, unable to let go? Have you felt old resentment rise each time their name, their face, or a certain memory came to mind? If so, I ask you honestly, what debt are you still holding in your heart? An apology never given? A wound never healed? Are you quietly keeping someone locked in the prison of the past, while you alone guard the key? If you're willing to sit with that question, you'll see this is not just the story of one servant. It is the story of all of us. Forgiveness does not mean the other person was right. It does not erase memory. Forgiveness is the choice to stop carrying the shackles of the past on the neck of your soul. When you withhold forgiveness, you do not punish them. You imprison yourself in an emotional cell. The servant in the parable was freed from an impossible debt, symbolizing the divine grace each soul has already received. None of us can pay back every error, every moment of ignorance, every year we've wasted. But God does not keep such accounts. He forgives unconditionally, because that is the nature of light. Yet if you have been forgiven but refuse to forgive, you are rejecting the very vibration of grace that sets you free. You cannot truly receive what you will not also give. The unforgiving servant represents a mind still living in separation, blind to the fact that he and the other are one. He still believes justice is payback, that debts must be collected at any cost, and this belief locks him once again into the cycle of suffering. The parable does not end with the king's vengeance. It ends with the natural consequence of a consciousness unwilling to release. When you do not forgive, you hand yourself over to the tormentors of your own negative thought patterns. Forgiveness is not lofty idealism. It is a practical tool for breaking the chain between you and pain. When you hold someone in resentment, you bind yourself to them, carrying them with you into every corner of your mental life. You may think you cannot forgive because what they did was too wrong, too unjust. But forgiveness is not agreement, it is the refusal to let that act continue to dominate your inner world. As Emmet Fox once said, you cannot bring light into a dark room by cursing the darkness. You simply open the door. Forgiveness is that opening, allowing divine light to pour in with a healing that surpasses logic. So let me ask you again, gently, who are you keeping in the shadows of your heart? And are you willing to open the door today not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free? The unforgiving servant need not be your permanent identity. It is a reminder that you can choose differently. Each act of forgiveness brings a part of you back into wholeness, and each debt you release brings you closer to that sacred space within where no one carries guilt, no one bears debt, only understanding, compassion, and the quiet voice like a soft wind in the soul. That is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, a space with no resentment, only light, and you belong there, always. The wedding banquet, inner readiness to receive grace. A king prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to call the invited guests, those already on the list, but strangely, they refused. One was busy with work, another with personal matters, and some even seized and killed the messengers. In anger, the king punished them, then told his servants to go out into the streets and invite everyone they could find, good or bad. The hall was soon filled, but when the king entered, he noticed a man without wedding clothes. He asked, "Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment?" Asterisk. The man was silent. He was cast out into the outer darkness. At first glance, this might seem harsh, but from a metaphysical perspective, this is not punishment. It is the reflection of a spiritual law. Grace is always available, but it can only be received when the soul is inwardly prepared. The banquet is the image of the spiritual kingdom, the state of union between the soul and the source. It is not only a promise after death, it is a consciousness you can enter. Now, if you are willing, the first invited guests represent those who have heard the call of light early souls, given the opportunity to awaken, but who still choose to cling to personal priorities, work demands, and worldly attachments. They are not rejected out of hatred, but they are simply not ready to step out of their comfort zone. Yet the banquet does not wait for anyone. Light depends on no one. Life keeps extending the invitation. The people from the streets, wandering souls rejected by the world, were brought in. What they all had in common was simple. They showed up, they said yes, and that was enough to bring them into that sacred space. Still, the most crucial detail is not about the invited guests, but the man without the wedding garment. He was present in body, but unprepared in spirit. This is a reminder that physical presence is not enough. Sitting in a meditation hall does not mean living in truth. Belonging to a religious group does not guarantee transformation. The wedding garment is a symbol of a purified state of consciousness, inner refinement, sufficient to receive the light. It cannot be bought or borrowed. It is the result of an inner journey of forgiveness, humility, letting go of ego, and daily cultivation of presence, the man was not cast out because the king was angry, but because his own unpreparedness made him incompatible with the vibration of the banquet. This is an energy law. When you are not resonating with the light, if you naturally find yourself outside of it, not out of rejection, but out of resonance, like an instrument out of tune, you cannot harmonize with the music of the kingdom, not because you are unloved, but because you have not opened yourself to receive. This story does not demand perfection. It invites sincerity. Do not step onto the spiritual path as a casual guest. Step in as one who has been invited to the deepest union with your truest self. Preparation does not come from fear, but from love. When you love the sacred, you naturally want to clear the inner space, removing attachments, healing wounds, quieting the inner noise so you can hear the whisper of light calling you. The banquet is not exclusive. Good and bad alike are invited. The only requirement is genuine presence and a ready heart, and you always have the choice to clothe yourself in forgiveness, gratitude, and trust in the divine life that is calling you home. Do not fear being cast out. Fear only entering unprepared, because that is what will make you feel empty even while standing in the light. The truth is, you cannot knock on heaven's door with knowledge or status. You can only step in with a soul that is ready. And that readiness is shaped by the decisions you make each day. So what garment are you wearing in your consciousness right now? How are you preparing for the sacred union that waits just behind the door of this present moment? The answer is not outside, it is within you. Quiet, clear, and full of love. And if you begin preparing today, you have already been invited. You need not wait. You need only step in. The dragnet, the final sorting of thought. A net is cast into the sea. When it is drawn up, it contains every kind of fish, large and small, good and bad. The fishermen sit down, keep the good fish, and throw away the bad. The parable ends there, with no explanation. Yet within that simplicity lies a profound truth about the purification of thought and vibration, the final discernment of the soul, when it stands before absolute truth. The net is a symbol of consciousness. The sea is the expanse of the mind, into which each day you cast your lines of thought, feeling, choice, and intention. Every action, every motive, every silent idea becomes a fish caught in the unseen mesh of your awareness. When the net is drawn up, when the appointed moment of a cycle arrives, everything you have gathered will come into plain view. No more hiding, no more avoiding. Inner truth cannot remain concealed forever. One day, each of us must sit down with ourselves, look directly at the harvest we have made, and separate. The good fish are the thoughts born of love, a forgiveness, service, integrity high in vibration, and pure in essence. The bad fish are the thoughts born of fear, greed, resentment, selfishness, and division. And no matter how cleverly you justify or disguise them in daily life, when the net is lifted, all is clear. This is not about judgment from an external authority. No angry deity comes to sort your catch for you. You are the one who sits down. You are the one who discerns. And this is a work no one else can do on your behalf. Nor is the sorting a matter of moral taste in the ordinary sense. It is not that what pleases you is kept, and what displeases you is thrown away. This is not punishment, it is non-compatibility. A thought that no longer resonates with living truth simply cannot remain. Remember, the net is lifted many times in your life, not just once. Every major change, every deep loss, every moment of awakening is another time when that invisible net rises above the surface. And you must face what you have gathered. This is the power of voice within, not merely a voice you hear, but the inner space to which you return. In that space, there is no blame, no comparison, no evasion, only you, with yourself. And in that moment, you know, with quiet certainty, what must be kept and what must be released. The parable does not threaten. It maps the inner cleansing process. It teaches you that you can begin selecting your thoughts now, before the net is pulled by circumstances beyond your control. Imagine each day as another casting of the net. Each time you choose forgiveness over retaliation, you place a rare fish in your net. Each time you choose inner stillness over automatic reaction, you add another measure of light to your catch. And when the moment comes, there will be no fear, because your basket will be full of sacred thoughts, cultivated through faith and love. But if you find your net full of refuse harshness, anxiety, envy, disappointment, this is not a moment for self-condemnation. It is an invitation to begin again. The ocean of consciousness is still here. Each day you may cast your net anew with a clearer intent. Live as though you are harvesting light. Choose each thought, each emotion, each word as though it were the fish you would present at the soul's wedding feast. In the end, it will be you who decides what to keep and what to release. No one else. No knocking from outside, only the whisper within. And when you return to that space, you will see something essential. The net is not only a symbol for the end of the journey, it is a gift to help you live each day. Each breath, with awareness and gratitude, the net has been placed in your hands. The sea is still before you, and each morning you have the chance to cast again and again, and again until, looking at your own catch, you see yourself in every fish you have kept. No confusion, no hesitation, only the clarity of morning dew, and the return that needs no announcement because you have been there all along, in the deep, pristine waters of the original mind. Conclusion, you already have everything within. From beginning to end, the parables Jesus told were never meant to impose rules or build a rigid system of belief. Each story is a mirror of the inner life, an invitation to step into the deepest place within yourself, where you can touch an unchanging truth. You have had everything from the very start. You do not need to search outside yourself or wait for some miracle to come through circumstances or other people. Everything you need: light, love, healing, creative power was placed in your soul as an inseparable part of who you are. So why do you still feel lacking, still searching, still doubting? Because the dust of the world has dimmed the lamp within you, because the noise of fear, ambition, hurt, and comparison has drowned out the inner whisper. Not because you are unworthy, but because you have temporarily forgotten your true nature. The parables are not mere moral lessons. They are the secret code of the Spirit. The way Jesus planted seeds of awakening in the hearts of people, and each seed carries a truth. You are the fertile ground. You are the sower, the treasure, the pearl, the wheat, and the gardener. Every image is about you, a soul on the journey back to itself. No parable ends in hopelessness, even when they speak of separation, darkness, or being cast away. It is always to show a natural law. Only when you recognize and release what no longer serves you can you enter into union with the light. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to strive for some unreachable moral height. You only need to live truthfully true to the voice within, true to the place in your soul. That needs no proof. When Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," asterisk, he was not speaking in metaphor. He was pointing directly to the greatest power you already hold, but rarely recognize. Not far away, not after death, not dependent on anyone else. But here, now, in every breath, every choice, every action you take from love rather than fear, this is the divine simplicity of true teaching. It does not require you to climb a mountain or cross a desert. It only asks you to turn inward, gently, humbly, patiently, and when you do, you will see you no longer need to store up, to prove, to fight, because the light you thought was out there has always been shining from within. The conclusion of every parable is not in the words told, but in the life you choose from this moment on. Will you keep going as before, or will you stop, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what seeds am I planting? What am I keeping in the net of my mind? Am I wearing the wedding garment or still clothed in fear? Asterisk. No one can answer for you, but you already know, even if only for a fleeting moment of stillness. You know what is real. You know what is calling your name. And if you dare to return, to forgive, to lay down the old definitions, you will see that every parable leads to the same open door. There is no lock, no guard, only an invitation. Come home. Coming home is not a step backward, it is a step deeper into your true being. And when you return, you will not return alone. You will carry the light. You will become living proof of what you once doubted. You will become the very prayer you once spoke. There is no need to knock anymore. The door you seek is you, and behind it is a freedom no one can take. It's a gentle voice you have always heard when you are still enough to listen. A peace that surpasses all understanding. So remember, you do not have to wait for a special event to begin. The feast is already happening. The treasure is still in the field. The pearl still shines in the dark. The Father still looks down the road, waiting for you to come home. The net is being drawn up every day, and the wedding garment is ready if you choose to wear it. You lack nothing. You only need to remember what you have always been, and then live from that place. Each day, each breath, as if you are already in the kingdom, because in truth, you have always been there. Call to action, become a channel for the kingdom. You are not invited merely to listen. You are not called merely to understand. Every parable, every image, every truth planted in your mind is not meant to be displayed, it is meant to be lived. No one is brought into the light just to sit still within it. Light does not exist for you to admire. It exists for you to become, and now is the time, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when everything is perfect. This very moment is the invitation to act as a living channel of the divine kingdom. Not a distant place, but a living reality within you, calling to be expressed through your thoughts, words, and everyday actions. You do not need to preach. You do not need to raise your voice. What the kingdom requires is presence. A person who lives in inner stillness can heal an entire room simply by being there. One who plants a thought of love can soften barren ground in another's heart. And one who lives true to their soul can awaken an entire generation with a single look. The kingdom arrives not by force, but by permeation. It flows through you like cool water through the smallest acts. A timely word of encouragement, a compassionate decision, patience when another loses control, the choice to remain silent when you could speak to win. Each such act is the seed of the kingdom, planted in a world hungry for light. You need no title to represent the sacred. You only need the commitment to live from the deepest place within you, where you are no longer the striving self, but the current flowing freely. And when you live from that place, you no longer see yourself as an isolated individual, but as part of a divine movement, quietly renewing the world from within. To become a channel, you do not need to abandon ordinary life. You only need to change how you are present within it. When you wash dishes with gratitude, you are cleansing the mind. When you walk with awareness, you walk as a sage. When you do repetitive work with love, you are helping restore the world. What reveals the kingdom is not some earth-shaking event, but the small conscious acts performed in awareness. And you can begin right now with the situation you are in. With the person you already are, nothing more required. A channel does not choose the water that flows through. It only opens, and so must you. Open your heart, open your mind, open the inner silence. Do not try to control the sacred. Allow it to lead. When you are no longer the barrier, you will become the gate. This is not a grand role. It is a true presence. And that presence is what the world is starving for. Not more theories, not more noise, but one more person living fully in what has awakened within them. The kingdom does not need you to become a teacher. It needs you to become a living proof. And that proof is not in your words, but in the energy you radiate in the way you treat others when no one is watching, in the way you speak to yourself when you fall. Begin where you are. Look around and ask, in this moment, what thought will honor the kingdom within me? In this conversation, what word will open the door to love? In this challenge, what action will be a bridge instead of a wall? Asterisk. If you ask often enough, you will not have to force it. You will become it. And when you become it, the world will not remain the same. The kingdom will not descend as a miracle from the sky. It is built through each conscious choice. And you are among the chosen, not because you are perfect, but because you have heard the call. Now, let this story not end on the page. Let it become the door. Do not merely nod step through. Do not merely remember, live it. Because you are the one the world is waiting for, not as a savior, but as an ordinary person carrying an extraordinary reality, a person who does small things with great love, a person who dares to become the space where the kingdom is revealed, not through power, but through holy presence. And if someone asks what you are doing, answer simply, I'm only making way for the light to pass through. Asterisk. Because this is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, not a call from outside, but the space within you that has always known the way home. And now you need only live as if you had never forgotten. You do not have to do anything to be worthy. You only need to remember who you are. What you have just heard is not meant to be placed on the shelf of your mind. It is an invitation to become the living space through which the kingdom is revealed. Walk from here, not carrying the heavy baggage of knowledge, but with a heart quietly ready to shine. For when you live as if you are already in the light, you will discover the most wondrous truth of all. You have never left it.